Florida State with some big news once again in the 2025 recruiting class. They have added another receiver, four-star Daylan McCutcheon, coming all the way to Tallahassee from Texas. This feels like a big one, Matt LaSerre. I know this is one that you're very excited about, so I'm going to let you take the floor here. Tell us a little bit about Daylan McCutcheon and what you like about him and what this means for Florida State.
This is huge for Florida State. I've been on the record a few times calling him the best receiver in the class, and I still think so. I still think if he's not one of the best, he's definitely up there, top five. He might not be ranked that way, but that's just my personal opinion. From back when we saw him a little bit at camp back a year ago now almost, he took really control of that camp. That's when Florida State really first got eyes on him. And they've liked him ever since and gotten that push. He's been one of those Texas kids who has visited a lot too. He's visited 3 times, once for that camp, I believe once for the Miami game, and then his official visit. It's one that they've really been on. And also, he has a lot of ties to Florida. That played a big part in this recruitment. He has family down in South Florida. At least that's what he told me. And I think that ended up being huge for getting him out of the state and being that school that could take him out of state. I also think that just the way the push worked is when you look at all these other schools he was considering, like Texas, for example, they had a different number one wide receiver they were going at with Moore, where for Florida State, this was their number one guy, and they could put all their resources into him.
What do you think this means big picture? I mean, it's hard to take kids from Texas, especially ones that are being so heavily recruited by Texas. We know he was in the top 5. Texas was in his top 5, along with USC, SMU, several other really good teams. So just what does this mean bigger picture-wise, for Florida State recruiting now, especially adding him alongside C.J. Wiley as well?
I mean, I think it's huge. We've had this conversation where Florida State or not even just Florida State, college football in general is becoming more of a national brand, right? Or more national sport like the NFL, where you can go recruit coast to coast. You can go to California and you can get guys like Brady Schmeigel, for example, there, or Blake Nicholson. Like, it's not that huge of a factor anymore. And I think it just puts the importance of that direct flight from Dallas to Tallahassee. Right now, it's that SMU's in the ACC. Granted, Florida State might not be in the ACC for long, but if it's the SEC, you still have that Texas connection with Texas and Texas A&M, and then OU brings Dallas as well. So it's kind of just shows you how Florida State can go out of state, can go out of these pipeline, and Dallas kids want to come. You also can't forget Mike Norvell was from DFW. He was born in, I believe, Irving. So he has that connection, and he was a wide receiver. So when it comes to guys like Daylan McCutcheon, Khalik Lockett, those kinds of big-time wide receivers who are from the Dallas area, that's an instant connection for Mike Norvell, and it's a huge one, right? It's an easy way to connect with someone. Even me being from Texas, or like Ben being from Kentucky, when you meet someone from Kentucky or you meet someone from where you're from miles and miles away, you have that instant connection, and it's very easy to talk to them.
When you look at his film, what kind of stands out? He's someone who, anytime I cut up his film, like, it's crazy from start to finish. Like, he's got 5 minutes of legitimate film where he's just doing insane things. So what jumps off the tape with him for you?
Maybe the bigger question is what doesn't jump off the tape, right? I
Right.
mean, his ball skills are really good. He's a really good route runner. He's fast. Obviously, he's on the shorter side, so you're probably looking more of a slot guy. But Florida State likes to move guys both in and outside, so you probably see him up both when he does finally come to Tallahassee. I just think everything here, I mean, he can go up and make a grab one-handed. He is that. What I always like to look for in wide receivers is when we go back and look at Keon Coleman from last year at Florida State, how he had that mentality of when that ball's in the air, that is my ball. No one else is getting it but me, and that's where you start making these crazy catches and you go up and you just grab it. He has that. That's not like that's something when I went and watched C.J. Wiley's, he was always so wide open all the time. You don't see that as much. I'm sure he has it, but you just don't see it as much in his film because he's so wide open. I love it when you can see a guy who, again, put 2 people on him, but when he jumps up, that's his ball and he's grabbing it and he's taking it to the house.
Yeah, he's playing some big boy football in that DFW area too. Lovejoy is always a program that's perennially a powerhouse, so that's good to see that he comes from that championship winning type of pedigree in the high school ranks. What does this kind of mean, though, alongside C.J. Wiley for Florida State moving forward with those 2 wide receiver commits now? Do you see them pursuing anyone else? And who are some names to know? I know they were still after Khalik Lockett. Just what's kind of your thoughts on the recruiting class here from here on out? Do you think they'll add anyone else, and maybe who should you look out for?
I think the biggest thing is, again, we were only looking at 2 to 3 wide receivers in this class. If you look at the last class, you saw a lot of wide receivers taken by Florida State. And even look at the way the room is now. That is crowded. It was the most crowded room going into spring camp by far, that you didn't even know who would be number one or who would be number two. Like, you just didn't know what the range would be because there was just so many guys. So you don't really need that many wide receivers. So after you go CJ Wiley, obviously you need to hold on there because Georgia's not going to stop. And then Daylan McCutcheon, you still probably look at Khalil Lockett as one where you kind of need some dominoes to fall. Like, you probably need some other guys to commit to Texas, to where, once again, it's the same thing as I said with Daylan before, where you now use all your resources where you're the number one guy for Florida State, but you're not the number one guy over here. So I think you need to kind of see that for someone like Khalil Lockett. And again, Kobe Howard, who wasn't really a take originally. He had a commit date out a while ago and then pushed it back and still hasn't committed anywhere. I think that's someone who, if Florida State misses out on a Khalil Lockett or misses out on a few of these top guys, that's who you can see him circle around back to, take an OV during the season, and probably be a take then, and you take him as that third wide receiver.
Another signing, another commitment, I should say, for Florida State here over the summer. It's been a busy past couple of weeks here at warchant.com and Warchant TV.
Wait. Sorry to interrupt you, Ben. I forgot one thing. Here was an important connection that I found with Daylan that I was doing research on a few weeks back. His new head coach at Lovejoy, Todd Dodge, who's a legendary high school Texas high school coach. He was originally down near Austin and Westlake before taking the Lovejoy job. But he actually coached with Mike Norvell at Pitt. So that was probably also an important connection coming down the stretch for Daylan.
All right, I love it. Mike Norvell finding a way to get those relationships pumping again. I know you've been working hard over these last couple of weeks. So has Florida State, and we think that the dominoes are going to continue to fall over these next couple of weeks. So make sure you're locked in here to Warchant TV as well as warchant.com. Head over to the premium recruiting board. Matt and Michael will have you covered there with all the latest recruiting notes and nuggets. Until next time, for Matt LaSerre, I'm Ben Spicer. Thanks for tuning in here on Warchant TV.